future fighting machines, we get inside the latest big banging technology. Coming up, a freaky flyer, computer shooters, and street fighting savvy. A grinning face, the flying future, the Joint Strike Fighter. Low cost, well, $36 million a copy. It's the next generation combat plane designed to do everything.
A lot of people have asked the Boeing company why this airplane looks as it does and why it's so different. Our initial answer is that it's no accident. When you look at all the requirements that have been laid on this airplane, one basic airplane to meet the requirements of the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Marine Corps, the Royal Navy, and the Royal Air Force, to do this in an affordable fashion, to get the pilots out there in a stealthy platform, to put bombs on the target, and then get the pilots back. The only way you can do that is by taking the best of modern technology, starting with a clean sheet of paper, and designing the airplane to meet the requirements. When you do that, we believe at the Boeing company that you get an airplane that looks just like this.
Well, let's hope it's brains over beauty, that it's not a bird we fancy taking to bed. I guess it's a bombshell underneath. Weapons are hidden internally. The new design will be fast and stealthy. And it looks like our test pilot Fred's having a whale of a time.
So what you're getting is an aircraft that is uniquely tailored to cost. And that is why you get this extraordinary concept that one basic design will be able to do two really quite different and diametrically opposite things, which is to take off normally like a conventional combat aircraft, and to land and take off vertically like a Harrier. We are at the moment talking at least 3,000 to 4,000 aircraft coming out of this program, and that's really even before you start to get your teeth into the export market.
The Navy and Marine version of the JSF will replace the current standard short takeoff and vertical landing jet, the FA-2 Harrier. The US Navy's getting 300 planes. The British get 60. I suppose that'll do. And the conventional JSF is replacing the F-16, the most prolific jet around. The Yanks have a mere 2,000 in the US Air Force. Another 2,000 operate worldwide. There's a big market out there for this new jet, so JSF builders will have to make it a rock-hard plane.
The wing is a solid piece, one wing that fits on the top of the fuselage. You get larger components and fewer components, a very strong wing, a very large fuel tank. You also get it high mounted on the fuselage so that you reduce the effect of the exhaust from the direct lift components when you're doing a vertical landing. Back here we have what's called the two-dimensional lift nozzle. This gives the pilot an additional maneuvering capability in that it will redirect the exhaust gases like this, up and down, in addition to the straight horizontal. This gives the pilot tremendous additional maneuvering capabilities.
Designers reckon the plane will exceed Mach 2 in all weathers. That's if the real plane can do what this animation suggests. Vertical takeoff planes usually take ages to get up and thrusting away as sitting ducks. But the design challenge is to get this duck up and moving within 3 seconds.
In the short takeoff and vertical landing variant of this airplane, these actually close, and the exhaust gases are redirected through lift nozzles at the side of the airplane, right at the center of gravity of the airplane, which give the airplane the ability to move vertically. There has never before been an airplane like this that is stealthy, supersonic, and has a short takeoff and vertical landing capability. This is the first one.
The JSF is conceived both as a first day of war stealthy strike fighter, full of ultra sophistication, and a menial kind of bomb truck for the rest of the war. These are actually very conflicting requirements, and the way they get around it is by installing internal weapons bays. You can load up bombs into those internal weapons bays, and keeping the airframe free of bombs and protuberances, you maintain its stealth. On, say, day 5 or 6 of the war, when you've taken out all the surface-to-air missile sites, you can then start loading up the aircraft with bombs on pylons. You're not stealthy then, but it doesn't matter anymore because you've already taken out the surface-to-air missile sites.
All this in just one plane. The JSF is due in service later this decade. You'll grow to love it. In Future Warrior, we look at things to help the trusty foot soldier. This time it's virtual battle training. There's no point sending troops into action unless they can shoot. And this is the latest in computer workouts. Like a great big PlayStation for soldiers. Fantastic, I'm joining up. The difference is they're using real weapons linked to the system. But they're expending virtual bullets, not those expensive real ones. Different combat scenarios can be played out, and it gives individual results for the squaddies and their commander, so nowhere to turn. A sneaky operator can throw in realistic problems, like a rifle jamming. Sort it out, mate. On the marksmanship stage, the screen shows exactly how badly you missed. It's Australian too.
Section 100 to 200 metres to our front. Enemy moving from left to right. Rapid, at my command.
Now this squad has to get down and dirty in a tricky firefight. And it's so real, they really get into it. And so does the enemy, who react to troops' fire. Oh, sometimes not quickly enough. If you're really unlucky, they'll send in a tank. But at least it's pretty outback scenery. Hang on, it never snows in Oz. We're still waiting, though, for the Ramsey Street shoot-'em-up. Still, now the Oz squad is all virtually trained up. Hopefully when they do get sent into combat, they won't get caught up in the fog of war. '20th century warfare. Tanks supporting infantry during desert storm. Battles over vast, open terrain. But as cities sprawl, strategists reckon most battles of the future will be fought on the streets.
Fighting in urban areas is one of the key topics being looked at by most armed forces at the moment. It's got a new name, fighting in complex terrain, which encompasses big cities and especially suburbs where you can have open areas, you can have countryside, but then clusters of houses and so forth. And it presents some of the most difficult terrain to operate in. People like the US Marines reckon the complex terrain accounts for, well, 80% of the world's population. And they're saying, if you don't understand complex terrain, then basically just don't fight.
Stalingrad, Berlin. Urban warfare in its infancy during the Second World War was confusing, fierce, and bloody. But as fighting in built-up areas is now more likely than ever, is it any cleaner?
Fighting in urban areas is about the worst scenario you can look at. Everything is in the defenders' favour. They have got loads of places they can fight from. You can't really see them that easily at all. The sight lines within an urban area are very narrow. In effect, as an attacker, you are always a second away from being ambushed from any direction.
Modern armies are trained for complex terrain during difficult peacekeeping operations. But if the situation heats up, Western nations with billion-dollar defence budgets have to get back to basics.
The strange thing about fighting in complex terrain is it's very, very un-high-tech, simply because of the constraints of the environment. It is reliant on manpower, first and foremost, carrying everything they need, because you can't guarantee that trucks and other things will get through, and the basic weapon is the infantry soldier. You can add other things on, but the infantryman is absolute king in urban areas.
Attackers can plan their assault, but they're always up against it.
For the defender in urban terrain, in operations in complex terrain, perhaps the key weapon is going to be the machine gun to get attackers as they cross the limited amounts of open space. As an attacker, the infantryman will want grenades, and more grenades, and yet more grenades. Each time he enters a new house, the first thing in is 1 or 2 grenades. Each room, the first thing that enters is 1 or 2 grenades. Expenditure of that type of ammunition, grenades and then small arms ammunition, in operations in complex terrain is immense. Some calculations say that for each man up front, firing, entering rooms, throwing grenades, you will need 3 to 5 people just carrying the spare ammunition to keep them supplied.
HQ can do its best to organise, but casualties can easily rise as high as 70% in urban areas. And this is still the most confusing battle an officer will have to face.
If a commander believes he can command perfectly troops once they enter urban terrain, then he's basically kidding himself. Communication is exceptionally difficult. Radios, of course, are often line of sight. Ultimately, a commander has to give general tasks, aims, ambitions, and then just hope his subunit commanders are good enough to carry out those tasks.
Practice makes perfect, though.
Various armies have built themselves special urban areas to do training, simply because, by and large, people don't like their cities being destroyed for training and are going all out on mounting operations in urban terrain because they see it as the key to the future.
Taking out terrorist targets, chemical or nuclear facilities, they could be hidden in towns amongst civilians. Preparation for conflict in complex terrain is now, more than ever, absolutely crucial. In Top Gun's what gives the biggest bang for the buck? This time, the behemoths of the sea, aircraft carriers. The Invincible class fills the British with pride. Vive la France! Sail on the Charles de Gaulle.